Good morning. My name is Michael Bindus, that's B-I-N-D-A-S, and I'm a senior attorney with the Institute for Justice, which represents Doug and Mary Ketchum and their company, Affluor Investments, in the case that was just argued. I'm joined by Mary and Doug behind me, as well as my colleague at IJ, Anya Bidwell, who will be speaking here shortly as well. Americans have a right, as citizens of this nation, to move to any state and to earn an honest living in it, regardless of their state of origin. And based on what we heard this morning in the courtroom, we are confident that the court is going to protect that right. No state can punish a citizen for having moved. No state may discriminate against its own residents simply because they moved there from some other state. Yet that is precisely what Tennessee's durational residency requirements do. They blatantly discriminate against newly arrived residents, folks like Doug and Mary, and flatly prohibit them from competing on equal terms with longer-term residents of the state. The Privileges or Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment, as well as the Commerce Clause, prohibits that kind of discrimination, and we're confident for that reason that the court is going to invalidate these restrictions. Doug and Mary's move to Tennessee and their purchase of this mom-and-pop liquor shop was not a matter of convenience. It was the best opportunity for them to be able to provide for their family and, more importantly, to care for the very significant special needs of their daughter, Stacy. They should not lose this opportunity simply because they haven't lived in Tennessee long enough in the eyes of the state or the Retailers Association. They should be permitted to earn an honest living on equal terms with other Tennessee residents, and we're confident that they will be able to do so when this case is over.
I'm going to ask you a couple of hard questions, but I'm going to ask them a few easy ones first. How's that? Can I get them up here? So I don't want to ruin your shot. So tell me your name.
Doug Ketchum.
Mary Ketchum.
And you applied for a license to, you wanted to move from Utah, as I understand. Why?
Well, initially our daughter had a severe case of pneumonia that she had a collapse lung. The doctors told us we need to get her to a better environment. They said if we stayed in that environment, they didn't expect her to live more than about a year. So we decided we needed to do something really drastic and find an opportunity to move somewhere else to give her a chance at a longer life.
So, forgive me, but I don't know. Did you own a liquor store in Utah?
No, we did not.
What did you do?
I was a network engineer, and Mary was a network technician
For the local telephone company.
Phone company.
And so you decided a good place to move was Tennessee. And why Tennessee, and why a liquor store?
Well, we were looking all over the country for opportunities, but we decided that probably the best way we could change our lives was that we could find something that would generate a good income and give us more flexibility to spend time with our daughter, Stacy. And so we were looking for a business opportunity that would fulfill those requirements. And the liquor store, when we found that opportunity, looked like it fit those needs, give us an income that would allow us to provide for our needs and give us more flexibility to have time to spend with our handicapped daughter.
Did you actually move? I don't actually know that.
Yes, we did. We actually moved.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah, 2.5 years ago. The state had told us they were going to approve our license. They said they saw nothing wrong with our application and that they were going to recommend approval. And based on that, we sold our house, quit our job, and we purchased a house in Tennessee. And then when it came time to get our license, they said, well, we lost your paperwork, first of all, so they put us off for another month. Then they said, well, we're going to put you on hold because we've got some issues that we're trying to deal with. And then the following month, which I think was September, they said, we're not going to issue a license. And the reason they gave us was that there was a residency requirement that they had not been enforcing, but that the Tennessee Wine and Retailers Association said, if you give them a license, we're going to sue you. The state decided they didn't want to get stuck in the middle, so the state decided they were going to file a lawsuit and let a judge decide. And that started the whole process.
Okay. Now, Mr. Bendis, let me ask you a question. The state does not appear to be basically in this case. They did not have a lawyer up there. They had the Tennessee wine retailers association up there, and other states were up there supporting them. And there are 35 states that have rules that are in one way or another like this. But how is it that they weren't enforcing it and then they decided to enforce it? Why did that happen?
The state was not enforcing this law. In fact, the state attorney general had opined this law was unconstitutional. And it was only because the Retailers Association went to the state, complained, threatened to sue the state if they did not enforce the statute, that the state began doing so. The fact that the state itself was nowhere to be seen today, the fact that it was the Retailers Association's private counsel rather than the Tennessee Attorney General arguing before the court today, just demonstrates the protectionism that is at the root of these laws. And when the Retailers Association demanded that the state enforce them, the state capitulated and did what the Retailers Association demanded.
Now, as sympathetic as this case is, there seem to be, this is one of those cases that all of the liquor cases are not like any other cases that come before this court in many different ways, including the fact that there is no liberal-conservative split of any sort. It's just a legal question. And the legal question is, did the 21st Amendment essentially leave the states alone to do what they wanted? And I didn't hear what you heard today. I couldn't tell what they were going to do.
I think the legal question is, can a state discriminate against its own residents? Doug and Mary Ketchum are residents of Tennessee. They are not out-of-staters. It's just that they haven't lived in the state long enough in the eyes of the Retailers Association and the state itself. No resident of a state should be precluded from earning an honest living that is available to other residents of the same state. And I don't think that is an ideological issue. I think justices across the ideological spectrum are going to recognize that discrimination against the state's own residents is unconstitutional, period.
But this case is framed as discrimination against out-of-state residents. That's the way the legal question is framed, because as far as the state is concerned, they haven't met the residency requirement. And the question that the justices asked was, well, what about the next person? What about when they want to have the Amazon of liquors, who doesn't have to have a residency requirement at all? What's your answer to that?
This is not simply a matter of having residents in the state of Tennessee. Doug and Mary are residents. No one disputes that they are residents. And the fact of the matter is, Tennessee has a very simple residency requirement that it applies in other areas of the law, such as estate law, tax law, divorce law. That test does not require you to reside in the state for 10 or effectively for 2 or effectively 10 years in order to be considered a resident of the state. I see no reason why the state couldn't apply a simple residency requirement if a residency requirement were actually necessary, which it's not. But there's no reason to require effectively 10 years of presence in the state in order to allow someone to earn an honest living. But more importantly, the residency requirement itself violates the Commerce Clause, regardless of whether it's a 2-year requirement, a 10-year requirement, a 1-year requirement. The Commerce Clause prohibits states from discriminating against out-of-state interests, and including in-staters like Doug and Mary.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much.